You know, I've been talking about Facebook, about what a horrible, horrible, horrible invention it has turned out to be. I'm sure Mark Zuckerberg and the other people who were involved in the creation of Facebook had no idea that they were creating something that would make the Dr. Frankenstein's monster look like a house pet. But they have. Facebook. And Jamel Bouie, who's a frequent opinion writer for the New York Times, had a piece out today that immediately caught my attention because his headline was this: Facebook has been a disaster for the world. Amen. And I've asked before, how much longer are we going to allow this particular platform to provide the hatred of these white supremacist bastards and the people in Putin's Russia who want to destabilize, undermine, and collapse the United States? I mean, how much longer are we going to allow this? It's to say, oh, shit, come on, Mike, you've been asking for 4 years. How much longer are we going to allow Trump to be in office? It's purely rhetorical, trust me. But Jamel points out that for years, Myanmar's military used Facebook the same way Trump does, to incite hatred. But in Myanmar, they took it one step further and incited genocidal violence against the country's mostly Muslim minority group, the Rohingya. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Rohingya is how I used to say it, but it has a Y, Rohingya. They're Muslims. They live in Myanmar until they had to flee because the military in Myanmar used Facebook to cause these folks to be slaughtered. I'm talking mass death. Now, we don't pay too much attention to mass death anymore, do we? I mean, I guess what? It's become commonplace. I realize it's been around since humans have been around. I understand that. But the slaughter of innocents, that to me is just unacceptable. But we accept it. Go figure, right? So Myanmar's military used Facebook to slaughter hundreds of thousands of Muslim minority. They're Buddhists in Myanmar. And that was something that was just bloody shocking to me. I could not believe what I was seeing a couple of years ago during the height of this genocide against the Muslim minority. Monks, Buddhist monks in their bright red robes and saffron robes and their shiny heads, butchering people. And I remember talking about it 2-3 years ago. Like, it was such a shock to me, which displays my naivete or my ignorance or whatever you want to call it. It's not a positive quality of mine to not have known. I always looked at the Buddhists as peaceful. Just take note, observe, let it pass. Well, that particular philosophy of the Buddhists in Myanmar went straight to hell, didn't it? Because they willingly participated. I'm guessing it was willing participation. They willingly participated in butchering men, women, and children. What kind of madness? You know my position on religion, on all religions. Their primary function is to teach us to hate. Who to hate? Okay, there are a couple of exceptions. Okay. But to see and to read what I read a couple, 3 years ago about the Buddhist majority in Myanmar, what they were doing to the Muslim minority, it was just horrifying. And it took until 2018 for Facebook to admit to how their platform was being used and to apologize for their failure to act. And as Jamel points out, though, 2 years later, here we are in 2020, the platform yet again is being used to sow the seeds of genocidal violence. This time, it's in Ethiopia, where the recent assassination of Hachalu Hundessa, it's the best I can do, a singer and political activist from that country's Oromo ethnic group. The assassination of that singer led to violence in the capital city, Addis Ababa. Now, according to Vice News, which is a great channel, by the way, oh my God, some of the stuff they have on Facebook is just outstanding. Anyway, according to Vice News, this bloodshed was, quote, supercharged by the almost instant and widespread sharing of hate speech and incitement to violence on Facebook, which whipped up people's anger, end quote. And this follows a similar incident in 2019 where disinformation shared on Facebook helped catapult violence that claimed about 100 lives in Ethiopia's Oromia region. No, I don't know where that region is either. But I can read, and I see that 100 people were slaughtered, and Facebook was an active participant in that. As Jamel Bowie points out, Facebook has been incredibly lucrative for its founder, Mark Zuckerberg. Remember, Zuckerberg ranks among the wealthiest men on earth. But this platform, Facebook, let's face it, it has been a disaster for the world itself, a powerful vector for paranoia, propaganda, conspiracy theorizing, as well as, and you see this in the United States, authoritarian crackdowns, vicious attacks on the free press. Jamel says this, wherever it goes, Facebook, chaos and destabilization follow. Thank you, Mr. Bowie. It's reinforcing for me when I get up on my soapbox and start preaching and screaming and farting and wheezing, as you've heard me do so many times, about certain issues. And I always wait for mainstream media in all of its different forms to kind of lead the way with that stuff, whatever that stuff happens to be in a given moment. And if I don't see it happening, I'll go ahead and step out and start talking about it. Now, please understand, I'm not saying, gee, golly, look at me, because there are other people, I think, on the left who do this. There are other people who you will hear on Progressive Voices, if you listen to their programming during the day, who do this. We take a chance and step out and make these declarations, make these statements, these definitive statements about this is bad, this is rotten, this is horrible, look what's going on. And in instance after instance, eventually mainstream media will catch up to us. Now, I understand the rules of journalism because I have worked as a journalist, which I'm not now, that's for damn sure. But I have worked as a journalist over the past 35 years. Well, actually longer than that. In various modes of reporting. And I know what the rules are. When I worked at CNN, the rules were absolute. They were more immutable than the laws of gravity or Newton's laws. When you worked for CNN, you followed rules of journalism. You went by the style book that said, this is what you do. This, by God, is what you don't do. But what we do in talk radio or these podcasts is very far removed from journalism, a lot of it. I mean, some of the people who are journalists on television or in the newspapers maintain that journalistic separation from their own emotions very well, if not just adequately. I can't do that. I can't. So it was good to pick up the Times today and see this piece by Jamel Bowie. Facebook has been a disaster for the world. Yeah. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. You have your choice. You can listen to the ranting with the audio podcast or listen and watch me lose control with a video podcast subscription. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.